Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Live Long and Pastor. My name is Josh Ziefel, Dean of the College of Ministry here at Northwest University. And just so you know, our goal here in this podcast is to learn more about ministry from pastors doing the work of ministry. Along the way, we hope you'll be encouraged, challenged, and for those pastors listening in, encouraged towards longevity as you live Jesus' calling in your life. My guest today is Pastor Tyler Sollie, lead pastor of Life Center in Tacoma. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, good to see you, Josh.
Good to see you.
Good to be with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you? Is this the church office or your home office that I'm seeing here?
This is the church office.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
in the office today.
looks very classy. So we got Tyler recorded today. He's heading out to India tomorrow as part of board responsibilities for it's an organization in Calcutta.
Mercy.
Calcutta Mercy. Yeah.
Calcutta Mercy.
That he's a part of. So great.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to learn a lot about you and about the church today. But first, big opening question that I ask everybody. If you had to choose a fictional character to describe yourself as a pastor, could be somebody from TV or movies or novels, who would it be and why? Who is that person?
Off the top of my head, I'd probably have to say Sherlock Holmes, and that's kind of a wild one. It's
All right.
not because I think I'm some great detective.
Mm-hmm.
I've read through his whole anthology
Oh, nice.
a number of times,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just something about his character that's intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yeah.
his little pithy statements and
Mm-hmm.
different dynamics. But I don't know. There's something about the way that he thinks through things that I'm like, oh, that's interesting.
That's interesting.
So
Actually,
yeah,
a number of years ago, I read through all the Sherlock Holmes books too. They're a lot of fun. Like they still hold
yeah,
up like 150 years later.
yeah. It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that just kind of popped into my mind. I
All
don't
right.
know. Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, you've probably heard this before. In terms of your look, as someone who is a Star Trek fan, there is a current TV Star Trek series, and the captain on the show, he is so you. He is absolutely
That's so
you.
funny.
Captain
That's
Pike,
awesome.
even the hair, like everything. It's just
Oh,
like,
really?
I'm like, that's Tyler Sollie. That's him right there. So he's a good guy
That's
too.
awesome.
So maybe that's like what you are as a
Yeah.
pastor. I don't know. So
There you go. Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know.
All right, that's a
That's
much better
awesome.
answer, Kevin Gear, if you're listening, than Paul Blart Mall Cop, just in case you're wondering out there, folks.
I can totally hear Kevin saying
Yeah,
Paul Blart though.
yeah, definitely.
That's funny.
We should probably get him a Segway to ride around the church. Something like that. Okay, so we're going to learn a little bit about your church, and I want to hear more about you today. But to start off with,
Yeah.
would love to. You and I have known each other a little while, but I don't know if I've ever
Yeah.
heard you talk about this. Describe a little bit of your call to ministry. I know that your family, you don't come from a ministry family. Your dad is in a trade, I think. So, but you're
Yeah.
leading a significant church here in the Northwest. So tell me about your call to ministry and how that came together.
Yeah. So I think to get there, a little bit of the backstory is my parents
Mm-hmm.
actually met at Life Center in Tacoma, where I now
Okay.
pastor. And so
Okay, yeah.
they met here, got married here. And I grew up, although, as you mentioned, my dad, he was a small business owner. He was a painting contractor,
Mm-hmm.
residential painter. And, but man, the way that we were just raised in life was when the church doors were open, we were here, we were part of
Yeah.
it. My dad was very
Yeah.
involved, served on the board, and
Oh, okay.
just incredibly engaged in the life of the church. And so, with that said, at a young age, I got really involved with our youth ministry, sixth
Mm-hmm.
grade, seventh grade. And I think it was summer camp in between my seventh and eighth grade year at Cedar Springs, right here in Western Washington.
Yep.
Um, I remember coming down to an altar response, just a prayer time, really. And for those who have maybe grown up or remember, like back in the day, AG summer camps, right? Like night one, get saved. Night two, baptized in the Holy Spirit. Night three, call to missions or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm just up front praying, and my youth pastor at that point, he was down praying with me, and I felt
Yeah.
the Lord just kind of whisper in my heart, I want you to be a youth pastor.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And I just
All
thought, I
right.
was like, oh, that's awesome. Okay. I
Yeah.
don't know what that means, but and thankfully, from my youth pastor to my parents to different leaders in my life, they just saw something in me, gave
Yeah.
me opportunity, encouraged me. Um, I think because of that, like, began to take steps towards different leadership roles. I was involved in student government in my high school, and
Hmm. Yeah.
and then going to Northwest, I knew that I wanted to pursue that, and there was one school that I was aware of, that my sister was actually, she had attended Northwest.
Yeah.
Some of her friends were going into ministry, and I'm like, man, that's where I want to go. So
Hmm.
stepped
Yeah.
in to my undergrad at Northwest, and just no turning back. Started getting involved with the church up in
Yeah.
Issaquah during my time at Northwest, called Eastridge Church. Came on staff there right before I graduated college, and spent our first 10 years in ministry there on the east side. So yeah,
Yeah. So you said seventh or eighth grade, so you were about 13 or so when you felt called to
yeah,
ministry in that very specific
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
you came to Northwest, youth ministry major, probably, I imagine.
Yeah, double major actually. So youth
Okay.
ministry and biblical studies.
Nice.
I was a biblit major for long enough that I stacked up enough Bible credits
Nice.
to have a double major. So yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
So then you were at East Ridge. You were doing youth ministry there.
yeah,
Obviously, you're not doing your main gig isn't youth ministry now. So tell me about the journey, kind of in youth ministry, and then to the role you have now. Kind of what did that progression
yeah,
look like?
yeah. I honestly thought when I graduated from college, like, I'm going
Hmm.
to be the guy who does youth ministry his whole life.
Yeah, and
I
some do.
just
Yeah.
that's what I thought I would do. It was in my heart, in my that sense of call,
Yeah.
and you know, so we just kind of put our heads down. We were at Eastridge for a little over 10 years in that role.
Hmm.
Um, got to work side by side with my best friend Josh Jameson, and who's
Yeah.
now the senior pastor of Eastridge.
Yeah. He is.
And so just experienced so much incredible fruit, but then, kind of towards the time where the Lord was getting ready to transition us, I just felt this subtle shift in my heart. And it wasn't that I cared less about students. It's almost like God was inviting me to trust Him, that there
Hmm.
was another chapter and it was going to look different.
Yeah.
And as we began to pray, we just sensed, okay, the Lord is doing something. And then that then led us to say yes to an assignment at Stone Church in Yakima, Washington. We
Yeah.
served as executive pastors. Um, and when we moved there, we thought, okay, our youth ministry days and years are kind of over.
Yeah.
And a part of me, I felt like on the inside died maybe a little bit. Like, I would sneak down to the youth services at Stone Church and, like, just kind of like watch from a distance,
I love it.
because I was still, the way I described it, I was like, man, I still feel like I'm a youth pastor on the inside.
Hmm.
And spoiler alert, like, here I am all these years later. And we just had a significant moment this last Sunday night for our student ministry here at Life Center. And, I described it the same way. Like, I'm still a youth pastor on the inside.
Hmm.
I think we never really lose that heart, because at the end of the day, pastoral leadership is about loving people
Yeah.
where they are in the midst of the journey. And so much of that I think has carried with me in the different
Yeah.
seasons. But yeah,
Yeah, so you were at Stone Church, and then I know when we got to know each other, you were in the Assemblies of God. We had this thing called Network Youth Director or District Youth Director,
yeah,
and you were helping to oversee and mentor and shepherd the youth ministries all across Washington and Northern Idaho. So
yeah,
you were
yeah.
in that
That
role
that
for
was
a few years, right?
yeah, 3 years. That was such a unexpected moment for us,
Hmm.
because again, I thought the
Yeah,
youth ministry days were over, and then it just kind of, the way God orchestrated everything. We ended
yeah,
up stepping into that season, and it was such a joy for us, because we were able to come alongside of youth pastors,
hmm
youth leaders, and
yeah,
students across Washington and northern Idaho. Roughly the Northwest Ministry Network's roughly 350 churches, and so we were able to jump back in and engage things like summer camps and
Yeah.
traveling, speaking, leadership development, stuff that we were always really passionate about. And yet it was definitely one of those moments that I never saw myself serving in that role.
Yeah.
So I think the fun part about this journey with Jesus, but specifically I think in vocational ministry, there were so many times where I found myself saying, well, I would never do that. And then the Lord's like,
Yeah.
opens up the
Yeah.
door and like, hey, I
Hmm.
want you to step into something that was not on your to-do list.
Yeah. It's funny. We've had different yet similar journeys. I started as a youth pastor, came here as a youth ministry prof, and then I haven't been a youth pastor now, Tyler, in 15 years. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
But, I'm on staff really part-time at Venture Church where I attend now, and I'm there on Wednesday nights helping with their adult classes. But man, every time they're getting ready, like for youth group and setting up, I'm like, what's going on over there?
Yeah,
Like I told Pastor Johnny the other
exactly.
day, on Sunday they do a Bible study with the teens, and I'm like, I want to come in and see what you guys are doing. Like I just
Yeah,
want to go in
yeah,
there and check it out. So,
yeah, for sure.
it's funny. My wife, there was a certain point at which she was done with youth ministry. She was just done.
Yeah,
But I like, yeah, there's part of me that would go back if they needed me right now. I'd be like, yeah, I'll be your small group leader, whatever you
yeah,
need. I'm
yeah,
I'm in. So yeah.
yeah. No, I've said the same thing to Nate, who's our youth pastor here at the Central Campus. I'm like,
Hmm.
you say the word, like I'll be your best volunteer you ever had.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, okay. Obviously, after your time as district youth director, we enter into you, I know, headed back to Life Center Tacoma, where you'd grown up as kind of an
yeah.
executive pastor role.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I came back to Tacoma. Our family, we moved in 2015,
Hmm.
and we stepped in to take over one of the campuses. So Life Center,
Rainier, right?
yep. So Life Center's one church. At that point, it had multiple campuses that were
Hmm.
all mobile campuses. So they were all set up tear down
Okay. Yeah.
campuses. So joined the team, which in many ways for me was like coming home, right?
Yeah.
A lot of long-term friendships, relationships, people that had watched me grow up. You end up in those conversations in the foyer. Yeah, I remember, all of those type of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet, yeah, little did we know really what God had in store for us and
Yeah.
what He was going to invite us into.
Yeah. Now, you and I talked about this briefly before we started recording, but for those who know Tyler and know the Northwest, you're going to know part of the story of Life Center. For others, you may not know. There's an elephant lurking in the room here. That there was a big crisis at the church with the former lead pastor. Some situations happened. I'm not going to try to go into all the details because I don't even know all the details and don't need to. But suffice it to say, there was some accusations against the former lead pastor. That pastor was no longer there at the church. Eventually, you came in and have served as a lead pastor. In some ways, it was a long time ago. This was probably 7 more years ago. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, a little over 7 years ago.
Yeah, seven
Yeah.
years ago. But for those of us, that were around and aware at the time, it's still something we think about. Unfortunately, when we hear the name Life Center, So I don't need you to go into all the detail here, except to say that you came in as the lead pastor in a very tough situation. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that was like kind of organizationally, and then what that was
Yeah.
like for you as a leader and as a pastor. Even I don't even know how you ended up in that role, because I could imagine that a lot of people may have been telling you, get out of there, do something else, and yet you ended up leading this thing. So yeah.
Yeah. No, such a great question. Yeah, so basically 2018,
Hmm.
the kind of the transition happened, or the exodus happened, and the board asked me to step in as interim pastor.
Hmm. Yeah.
And for those of us, who have been in ministry a while, we understand if you're going to serve as interim pastor, that's like a time period, because the moment they elect a new senior pastor, really the best thing to do is for you to exit so that that new senior leader can kind of
Hmm.
set direction and culture, and you don't have any weird, unhealthy power battles or
Yeah.
dynamics. And so, as Amber and I prayed, we were like, because we were leading the Rainier campus,
Yeah.
and by that point, we had moved that campus into a permanent facility. We were having the time of our lives in ministry. We were loving what we were doing. And all of a sudden, this moment happens that
Yeah.
none of us were expecting, none of us were planning on. And now we have to pray and make a decision. So, again, kind of that common thread in the ministry journey has been these moments where we're not necessarily expecting or looking, but God then opens up this opportunity and has invited Amber and I to simply be
Yeah.
willing to say yes,
Hmm.
trusting that He's going to make it work. And so this was definitely one of those moments because I honestly, Josh, I never thought I would be a senior pastor.
Hmm.
It was never on my to-do list. It was not on my bucket list. I
Yeah.
didn't even see myself in that kind of in that sphere,
Hmm.
you know. And so we stepped in as interim pastors, and then about a month or two into that, the board asked Amber and I if we'd be willing to allow our names to stand
Hmm.
as senior pastors. And so that then led into a whole nother level of like prayer. And I'm on phone calls with like mentors and leaders. I remember calling my pastor, Steve Jameson, and I just walked for hours, like talking to him, praying, processing of like,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't see myself as a senior pastor. What do I
Yeah.
do?
Hmm.
And, but we felt like the Lord inviting us just to trust him
Yeah.
in the journey. And part of it too is when we said yes to coming to Life Center, we didn't feel comfortable in just like burying our head at the campus that we
Hmm.
were at and going, well, you guys figure that out. That's your problem. That's not ours. That's not what we signed up for. And so even if our role was to come and serve as a stabilizer and then just try to serve faithfully as an interim pastor, if that's what the Lord wanted, we want to say yes to what he's orchestrating, not what we're
Yeah.
trying to fabricate.
Yeah.
So,
So, I'm curious when you stepped in, certainly to the interim role, but then, of course, when you stepped in to the full time role, what did it look like on the ground? What kind of leadership challenges
yeah,
were present on the ground for you? I know there was
such,
division
yeah,
in the church. I know there
yeah,
was no doubt frustration, anger, confusion, all sorts of
yeah.
things. What would you say were some of the top areas of concern for you as a leader coming into that?
Yeah, when you step into a moment like that as a leader, especially in the context we were in, it
Hmm.
almost just felt like a triage moment where you're like,
Okay.
okay, we just got to keep the church alive. So
Hmm.
you're not focused on just the pinky over there that hurts. You're like trying to do chest compressions, on the
Yeah.
heart of the church. Um, yeah, so I mean, it was divisive, it was hard, it was sad because you're dealing with decades of relationship.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of practice, like Central Campus probably dropped about 30% in
Hmm.
attendance,
And this was not a small attended church to begin with. I mean, what were the numbers
no, no,
we were
no.
talking about
Yeah,
here?
yeah. So I mean, Central Campus, we probably dropped about 1,000 adults at that point.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, so there's dynamics of that, and then you're trying to figure out like the financial ramifications of
Hmm.
that, the leadership structure ramifications of that. You're trying to discern like who's here because they feel called to Life Center, who's comfortable just getting a paycheck from Life Center, but their loyalties are elsewhere now.
Hmm. Yeah.
And just trying to like really lead through, work through, and be honest through those things, right?
Yeah.
What made it challenging is just the type of transition that took place. The former senior leader decided to plant a church 1 mile away.
Okay. Yeah.
So that creates unique dynamics there. So it was challenging in Tacoma because it was in the newspaper. It was, in the midst of all of this stuff.
Hmm.
And so you're trying to keep your eye on the mission of Jesus,
Yeah.
but the challenge with moments of crisis like this, the noise can be so loud, and sometimes it's not just the noise outside, but it's the noise in your own mind and heart.
Yeah.
And so trying to find that place of being faithful to the assignment and trying to hear the words, well done, good and faithful servant, even when you don't feel like maybe you're getting the
Yeah.
applause from everybody. Because again, it was a messy, confusing season.
Yeah.
And but here's what I've learned through that journey is like the body of Christ is so incredibly resilient.
Hmm.
It really is beautiful if we as pastors will simply love it well and try to lead it well and honor God through that.
Hmm.
Because yeah, the journey is as painful as it was. God continues to write a beautiful story in the midst of all of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I won't dwell on that moment too much because obviously we're 7, 8 years past that now. But
yeah,
one question that I'm kind of curious about would be like, obviously you've learned a lot since then. You learned a lot in that space, but as you came into that space, as you stepped in as lead, what was what were your main priorities leading in that first season? Like,
yeah,
what were your goals? You know, what were your I mean,
yeah,
as the spiritual leader of that organization, of that church, of that
yeah,
community.
yeah. Out the gate, I really knew it wasn't time for vision yet. It was time for healing.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
really just kind of doubling down on being highly, highly pastoral, in the truest
Yeah.
sense of the word. It wasn't a time for like, here's where we're going. Here's what it's like, just loving the
Yeah.
people, leading the people through it.
Hmm.
But some of the other mandates that we felt like really clearly out the gate, we knew we needed to raise the level of just like biblical literacy within the heart of the congregation.
Hmm.
And that became a clear passion of like, we have to strengthen and get the church healthy. And we
Yeah.
can't do that with just like inspiration. We need
Hmm.
to root people in the truth of the gospel,
Yeah.
and really just like equip lives. And the good news is it took time. We knew that there was going to be some shifts in our leadership structure, the way we do things, systems, processes. There was a whole bunch of culture work that we had to do within the teams and the organizations and our leadership culture. Um, but it was like step by step. But it felt
Yeah.
like a few years. I've described it this way, where you drive by a building project, signs are up, but it feels like nothing's going on.
Hmm.
And it's because they're doing all the underground stuff. They're doing all what's called the site work.
Yeah.
And that can take, it looks like it takes forever. And it looks like they're just moving dirt around. And like, what are you guys actually doing? When are you going to
Yeah.
build something, right?
Hmm.
But that site work is so important because you're putting in the infrastructure that everything that's visible is going to be sustained by.
Yeah.
And so, like, I felt like that was our assignment, that was our mandate. And then, 18 months after we stepped in, because we were elected in 2018,
Hmm.
right? 18 months later, we experienced this dynamic called COVID. And so that then, like, in a
Yeah.
weird way, it literally brought Life Center down to the studs.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is, when we reopened, um, you're capped at like 200 people, because we were trying to, you know,
Yeah.
follow whatever mandates we could, and trying to like honor what we could in the midst of that journey. Um, and it really rebooted Life Center, to be honest.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
today, people who have been away for a while and they come back, they remark like Life Center is a different place.
Yeah.
Same name, man, thankful for our history, right? We've been
Hmm.
in Tacoma. Our church was planted in 1918.
Yeah, I was going to
And
say, I
so, I
think
mean,
it's a
we have a
historic church
long,
there.
yeah,
So yeah.
it's a historic AG church. Our first pastor was Frank Gray, who was the first superintendent of the Northwest Ministry Network. So, I mean, there's just like deep roots, long history.
Hmm.
But it's just amazing that this church that started during the Spanish flu pandemic also survived,
Yeah.
COVID-19. We walked through two global pandemics in our history, and
Yeah.
God keeps doing what he does best. So,
Yep. And all of us say we don't want to walk through anymore. Other people can in the
yeah,
future, but not
yeah,
us.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
So I bet, Tyler, that over the last 7 years, some pastors who have faced some similar leadership situations as yours when you came in have reached out to you for advice. And I
yeah.
bet, I don't know if you thought this, but maybe if you had a time machine and you could go back in time to Tyler of 7 years ago, like what advice do you give people facing a situation like you had? And what advice would you give yourself if you went back to 2018, stepping into the
Yeah,
role?
yeah. Such a good question. Um, I think first and foremost, like as leaders, learning to move at the speed of trust. Because in pastoral ministry,
Okay.
trust is our only currency. Um, if the people don't trust you, they're not going to follow you. Um, and unfortunately, a lot of times we want people to trust us because of our title. They won't trust you because of your title. They'll trust you by
Hmm.
what you do.
Yeah.
And so I think building trust, getting yourself healthy and making sure that you get your leadership structure and culture healthy, because that's the tip of the spear and everything's going to trickle down from that. And so um, making sure that you move towards building a healthy staff culture, volunteer team culture,
Yeah.
whatever that looks like within the context, I think is so important, because I think the temptation is to get up and be like, hey, I know we walked through some hard stuff, but here's where we're going next. And I would
Yeah.
just say, like, fight the urgency within your own heart, or even I think in our social media world, everybody feels this pressure to, like, well, I got to show people like what's going on, or how we're different now. And it's like, man, just slow down. Be willing to engage in that, what Eugene Peterson calls a long obedience in that same direction. Like, be faithful for the long term, because all of us have to remember
Hmm.
as pastors, we are all interim, right? Like, we are
Yeah.
either someday going to retire, die, pass the baton, transition, or Jesus is going to come back. Like, I mean, those are really the options there. And
Yeah.
so we have to always lead in such a way that it's not just about us, but what's going to come after us. It has to
Hmm.
sustain. And so focusing on health, building trust, um, moving a church
Hmm.
towards health that will sustain over the long time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then the other thing that
So,
I've encouraged leaders is, don't listen to the noise too much. Like, just stay faithful to what Jesus is calling you to do.
yeah. 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 And I'm certain, I know that you had a lot of noise back in those days that you
Yeah,
had to sort of. I think about this for any largely public leader, like the number, like regardless of what political party the president is, can you imagine if you ever look at what people say about you, it's just going to be the end of the world. So you can't,
yeah, yeah.
you just can't.
Don't look.
Um, so obviously yeah, don't look. It's not
Yeah,
2018 anymore. It's 2025. As I
yeah,
said, in some ways that was a long time ago. We're on the other side of a pandemic, all of this kind of stuff. Um, I mean, you said Life Center, some people have come back who haven't been there since before, and they said it's a whole different church. What are you most excited about what Life Center has become, what Life Center is about, what Life Center is doing right now here in the year 2025, in
yeah,
the last 7 years?
yeah. Man, I just rejoice in God's goodness. He's been so gracious to
Hmm.
Life Center. I mean, really, the
Yeah.
stuff that we've walked throughout the entire history of Life Center. I mean,
Yeah.
the church building in the 70s burned to the ground, right? I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
there's been one thing after another, and yet God just continues his faithfulness. And I think what excites me is just the buy-in, the alignment around our shared mission and vision that we're on, right?
Hmm.
We have
Yeah,
three physical locations in Pierce County. Our campuses, one's being led by Pastor Tyler Schaefer, Tyler,
I do.
and just like incredible what God is doing in South Pierce County.
Mm.
One is being led by Pastor Josiah Thomas, our North Tacoma campus. I mean, just the fruit that they've seen in the last year. We
Hmm.
moved their location to a different location, and I mean, it's just thriving. They have more property to build and expand, and so there's so much good fruit that's in alignment with this shared,
Yeah,
unified mission and vision. Um, and that's the exciting part. I mean, we're seeing incredible just life transformation. People, this last weekend we had water baptisms across our campuses. We saw 74 people
all right.
baptized in water,
Yeah.
and just lives continue to be transformed. Sunday night, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but Sunday night, we did the grand opening of our brand new student center a few months ago. We purchased a new piece of property
Hmm.
kind of adjacent to our central campus, and have renovated that building, transformed it, and it was our student grand opening in their own space. And I mean, just
Yeah.
impactful. So I think when you walk through a hard season where you feel like you're on defense and you feel like you've been playing defense for a long time, and then when you feel just like this pivot and the spirit is now moving things forward and you feel like you're taking new ground, not for your name or your glory, but to really just see the kingdom of God continue to advance. To me, those are the things that are just so exciting. Like I
Yeah.
love the team that God has put around me. And he's put like just incredibly smart, gifted, talented, anointed people who are like they're the ones making it happen, making it reality.
Hmm.
And I get to play the part that God has me playing in this season, and we're honored and thankful to be able to do that. But
Yeah.
it's never just one individual. Like
Hmm.
it takes the variety of spiritual gifts being
Yeah.
put to use. So
I read that somewhere in the Bible, somewhere. Yeah.
it's biblical. It's
It's biblical,
biblical.
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you probably know the story. I was talking to Wes Davis last time, and I referenced the story that Kevin Gear told when he went to Kalispell to
Hmm.
lead Canvas. Went to the local Starbucks and said, "Hey, I'm new in town. Where should I go to church?" And this barista listed every church except for his and says, "Don't go to that
Yeah,
church." So
yeah. Don't go there. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
yeah,
Don't go there, right? And of course,
yeah.
he made because he's Kevin. He made it his personal mission to make sure that was not true anymore. And I do not think that's true anymore
It's
in
not.
Kalispell at all.
Yeah, yeah,
But today in 2025, not in 2018, but in 2025 today, if I were to go down to Tacoma and I were to ask some people about which church, what Life Center was like, how would people in your community describe the church? Like what would people,
yeah,
and I know it would vary depending on their perspectives and different things, but generally speaking, how would
yeah,
people in the community describe Life Center today?
yeah. I think a few years ago, people would have said, "Oh, that's that big church that does that big Christmas production," right? It's
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
the thing that we were known for or
Yeah.
really kind of recognized. And the beautiful thing is that's where so many people's journey with Jesus started. And so
Okay.
that served its purpose. But now I think people would say, man, that's a church that truly loves our community.
Hmm.
They serve. It's a multi-ethnic church. It's a multilingual church. Multiple campus. It is. Um, it's passionate about doing what they say they're about, which is bringing life in Jesus to every life in our communities. And so, I think that's the feedback that you would get
Hmm.
when I run into people who are new to Life Center. I'm like, hey, what drew you here? And
Hmm.
a lot of people like, well, we were looking online and we decided to come check it out, and we just never left. We saw, um, you know, people who were on mission with Jesus,
Hmm.
who are passionate about, and one of the things we do every single weekend, we close. It's kind of like our last thing we say, and the congregation all says it together. I close every gathering with this thought: like, we don't just go to church, and everybody says together, "We are the church."
Church.
And
Yeah.
it's very much the beautiful thing. It's moved from maybe a nice little language thing to becoming reality.
Hmm.
We hear story after story of like people who say, man, this is what it looks like for me to actually be the church.
Yeah.
And so you're hearing stories of that. And I think that that is attractive to people who have questions. I think people are open to the gospel, and people are open to looking for something if it works. And what I love is that when people walk through the doors of one of our campuses, they're encountering people who, with their own lives, are declaring, no, this works.
Hmm.
Being a follower of Jesus, like it changes everything. And so I think that's what you'd probably bump into,
Okay.
either
Yeah.
that, or somebody would probably say, oh, that's that again, historical, like, oh, that's that big church, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, that's not what we
Yeah.
want to be known for.
Hmm.
Like, the goal for us, honestly, even in our vision, a couple of years ago at Vision Night, I shared a vision narrative that I wrote called The Church I See. And part of
Hmm.
it says this: our goal is not to grow Life Center big. Our goal is to grow the people of Life Center big. And I
Okay.
think that's the distinction. But I also think that's part of the reason why we have been seeing growth and engagement, and growth and participation.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that actually sets up a next question. Obviously, well, you and I don't know how old you are, Tyler, but you and I are about the same age. So we're not young, but we're not old. So
yeah,
we got
yeah,
lots of energy and work left in us, right?
I
So,
appreciate that. Yeah,
I don't know. It's the definition of middle age, Tyler. That's what
yeah,
it is.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
but like as you look forward now, I mean, as you
yeah.
look ahead to the next year, years, what excites you about where you perceive God may be leading Life Center, what God's kind of leading you to do in leadership in the church there, and what might
Yeah.
be happening in the next few years?
Yeah. Man, what I'm excited about in 2023,
Hmm.
I was just praying and kind of thinking about the future of Life Center. And in 2023, we cast a 10-year vision, which will obviously culminate in 2033. And so we're chasing kind of three key initiatives within our vision. And what excites me is getting a church like Life Center, which historically has been what I would call a very like attractional and even event driven church, and trying to pivot this historic attractional kind of event driven church to really be mission driven, and even like challenging our staff to pivot from being doers of tasks to developers of people. We want to
Hmm.
mobilize God's people in the work that He's wanting to accomplish throughout Pierce County and around the world. And so, um, man, what I'm excited about the next number of years is just seeing the continued fruit of movement towards those different pieces of our 10-year vision.
Yeah.
Some of those include like the impact within Pierce County through our current
Hmm.
campuses, and Lord willing, campuses that, as God would open up the door, that we could add to create impact.
Yeah.
And then key areas of getting people into intentional disciple making environments. And then finally, like mobilization through both giving and going in the area of missions.
Yeah.
So we have some big goals in each one of those areas. And to me, that's what excites me, is trying to keep a church that has a lot of history and a lot of muscle memory focused on something that's more than just, all right, this year here's what we're gonna, okay, this
Yeah.
year, it's like,
Hmm.
no, 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 what are we doing? We're gonna keep doing this, and we're gonna
Yeah.
stay faithful in this, and all of that, while you're still trying to continue to elevate, biblical literacy, and
Hmm. Yeah.
equip people, to to not just go to church, but actually be like live as the
Yeah.
church, the body of Christ. So I feel like if I can stay focused on that and faithful in that, like, man, I can keep walking that journey, because I could pour my life and leadership into a church that wants to move in that direction.
Yeah. My internet is being real weird. You may have noticed this, so hopefully this all works. We'll finish up soon. So, you
Perfect.
know,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you what your prayer for Life Center is in this season, but I think you've basically just told me. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you would continue in this direction and
Yeah.
going deep in people and the mission.
Yeah.
Um, Tyler, one question that I've tended to ask a lot of pastors, and this is basically my last question here. Is let's imagine you are speaking at a conference, you get a room, a small stadium or an arena full of 10,000 pastors, and I give you 60 seconds to say whatever you want or whatever you think those pastors need to hear. What would you say in that 60 seconds to a room full of pastors?
Yeah. Be faithful to
Hmm.
who God has called you to be, and be faithful to what he's entrusted to your care.
Okay.
I feel like what's crushing so many leaders, and it's not just pastors and leaders, I think just our social media culture. We spend so much time measuring ourselves by what somebody else is doing, which the
Yeah.
Apostle Paul calls unwise or foolish, by the way. And yet we can't help it.
Yeah.
And to me, like, turning off the noise, what has God put in your heart? And are you being faithful to that? And trusting Jesus with the outcomes. I think that's
Yeah.
the other thing is, um, in our American culture, we want everything up to the right, and
Yeah.
that's not always reality. And are you still going to be faithful to Jesus if that's not the reality? Like, how do you walk that out? I remember I was fresh out of college. I was a brand new youth pastor at Eastridge, and I had the opportunity to sit down with someone who was a distant mentor and had become kind of a little bit of a friend and a mentor. His name was Jude Fuquay. And I remember sitting across the table from him, and he looked at me and he said, "Tyler, never forget the anointing is on the real you, not the you that you try to be or the facade that you try to put forward. But remember, like, God has anointed and graced the real you. So be that." And I think that's what I would just encourage pastors to be aware of and lean into, because I think there's such a freedom. Tim Keller wrote a book, it's a short book a number of years ago, called The Freedom of Self-Forgetfulness.
Oh, okay.
And just that idea of, like, at the end of the day, it's not even really about me. It's about me being faithful to
Mhm.
what God has put in my hands. And so
Yeah.
I would just say, like, avoid that trap of trying to make it about you, or trying to be somebody who you're not, or doing things for the likes or the metrics or the this or the that.
Yeah.
Um, and be willing to embrace the dirty, messy nature of pastoral leadership, where you gotta be with people. You gotta
Yeah.
love people more than you love the stage, the mic, the lights, the platform, because people feel that.
Excellent. That's a good word. Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
Our time is just about up, but is there anything you wished I would have asked you, or that you'd like to say in closing, that you'd like to as a final word before we go today?
No, I mean, I'm so thankful for each and every leader, right? I think both you
Hmm.
and I, Josh, we've talked over the years about the role of, like, local church leaders. And I think at times when you're in the middle of the mess, sometimes that's all you see.
Yeah.
And so maybe just the last thought that I would leave, maybe for those, you might be in an internship and you feel like you're leading through a mess, or you might be, a youth pastor, a senior pastor, whatever it might be. And I would just encourage you with this, like, sometimes when you're in the middle of the mess, it's all you see.
Yeah.
But if you can get a chance to step back and look for what is God doing in the midst of the mess, you'll be amazed. You're probably doing way better than you even recognize or realize. Because I
Hmm.
think sometimes, if we're honest, we're all of our own worst critics.
Yeah.
Um, and so step back from the noise and just look for the beauty of what God is writing and working, regardless of how great the season feels or how challenging the season feels. Yeah.
Okay. I'll take that. Tyler, if people like your style and they want to know where they can hear more of you, obviously I'll put the website for a Life Center in the show notes for this.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere else people can find you or things you've written or done on the internet?
Yeah. I blog from time to time,
Okay.
tylersollie.com.
Okay.
And then all my social media stuff. I used to be way better at social media. I feel like I have this like love-hate relationship with it. But I have, all the social media stuff. It's just
Yeah.
at Tyler Sollie. I guess that's the nice thing about having a unique last name is,
You're telling me I'm
yeah,
Joshua Ziefel at gmail.com. No number one,
yeah,
two, or three for
yeah,
me.
yeah,
So
yeah. So, I mean, yeah, Instagram, Facebook, stuff like that. But
awesome. I'll put
yeah,
some of that on the show notes there.
yeah,
So if people want to connect, that's good.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks so much, Josh.